And count it down in three, two, one. Hello and welcome to The Source. I'm joined here by a very special person. Special person, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, Jim. Thanks for having me. My name is Brittany Duncan. I'm actually the manager of talent sourcing and recruitment marketing at Dairy Farmers of America. I'm also a children's book author and a yoga teacher and a speaker and just a lifelong learner. So I'm happy to be here.
Nice, nice, nice.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now I have a question for you. It's a trick question, but I think you can manage it. The
Okay.
question is, how do you make sourcing cool again? I
Ooh, I
understand
love
you
that
might have a
question.
few tips there.
That's kind of how I live my day-to-day life. I try to make sure everyone knows what sourcing is, why I love it, why they should love it, and how it's a community effort. When
Mm.
I started at Dairy Farmers of America, I started in December of 2019, so before the world changed for all of us. And I was
Yeah.
the second person in that position, and the first person had been there for a little while, but decided that it wasn't the right fit for them. So I essentially came into a brand new role inside of the talent acquisition department. I had the blessing of being fully bought in and supported by the leadership. They were understanding that this is a need that they had. They didn't quite know where to take it, but they believed in me for being able to help build that out, which was really empowering for me. And SourceCon was actually my first resource that was shared with me. I did the SourceCon Academy, and then I was signed up to join SourceCon in March of 2020. So obviously those things changed. Um, but I had to figure out my learnings from SourceCon, what I knew from my world of sourcing talent in my previous HR hats, and how do I do this now that the world is changing? How do I do this? I'm new. This position is new. The world that we're navigating right now is really new to everyone.
Yeah.
Uncertainty was kind of the common theme, right? How do I
Mhm.
convince people to leave their job right now? So I had to be very vulnerable, very authentic, and just do it the way I knew how, which is my way, Brittany, being me. I can't do it the gym way. I can't do it anyone else's way. I can just show up and be me. And that's the one thing I know how to do, that and to learn. So I kind of had to start from the beginning, which was an ultimate blessing. That's one of the best things about my job is that I get to build it out every day and I get to build it out with an amazing team. I know everyone doesn't necessarily get that opportunity, but there are things that I've learned that I think can contribute to how to make sourcing one even a thing and how to make it something that's embraced, how to make it cool, how to make it something that everyone wants to be a part of. So I had an interesting start to that journey. I'm happy to talk through some of my
Please,
methods and things that I've
please.
done.
Yeah, please.
That's kind of my beginnings of sourcing specific. I started my career as an educator. I graduated from William Joy College. Um, and I was working with a scholarship program as a last dollar scholarship program. So we would follow students to wherever they wanted to go, and we would cover the rest of their costs so that they could be a first generation graduate, but also graduating debt free without having that burden.
Ooh.
So I worked with seventh graders through 12th grade, which was amazing, but it's really hard to motivate a seventh grader to do much of anything, let alone think about something that they haven't experienced yet. And here
Right.
I am, freshly 21, 22 out of college saying, guys, this is important. I have my debt mounted on me. I am first generation. I did go through the battle. Listen to me. But they're students. They're here to learn, and they learn not just in that moment that I want them to. It's all encompassing. And I got to see what we had to develop to get them to the next grade, let alone the next step of the program to that graduation. A lot of that took sourcing. I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but it was community engagement. I had to have the right
Hmm.
partners within my organization, but also when we stepped out. I visited kids at their schools. I had to work with their counselors to get their grades. I had to understand who their teachers were to make sure that they were in the right courses. I had to understand their parents or their guardians, the people that were raising them, and the support that they needed, and understanding that all their needs might not be met and I might not be able to meet all of those, but who in the community can serve those needs to help me in the story of getting these kids to and through? And we had a gap in that program. We were getting kids to and college and they were getting through, but then there was that gap of career placement afterwards. What do they do now? They don't have a coach like me with them every day. They have a coach still, but it's different. Now you're an adult, there's less interaction. And now you have your own choices. What do I do now? So we saw that our kids were getting degrees, but they weren't necessarily getting fully employed. They might be getting jobs, but it wasn't in their wheelhouse. It wasn't in their career field. So we had a gap, and a teammate of mine decided, let's do a pilot program. Let's create an internship program in-house. Let's work with our own kids. We've known them since they were in seventh grade. We know what careers are like. Let's try to build that little bridge right there. So we started a program. We got a budget. We got to advocate for that budget through our leadership and through the board. And we showed the data. We showed where our students were. where they were going and how we had an opportunity to help even further. And that was my first taste of HR, which I didn't realize I was doing at the time. I thought I was just still teaching, still just helping my kids, and I was, but I was also stepping into a new territory. I had to start networking with our HR woman and ask, okay, I know, Miss Karen, that you can hire me. I know that you can fire me. I know you do payroll. I know you do some of these other things, but what do you do all day really? How did you even get here? What did you study? I just started bugging her every day. What did you do? She told me about HRCI and how she got her PHR. At the time, they had just started the APHR, which is the Associate Professionals. So I was like, okay, that might work because I didn't have any background in HR. And that was my foot into the door. And I said, all right. And then my time with the program was coming to an end simultaneously as that internship program was being developed. The grant was coming to a close. So my age group wasn't being added anymore. So my internship program was kind of my swan song with that program, but it was also my opportunity to learn. I love HR. I loved knowing that there was a gap with talent and a gap with where they needed to be. I could kind of see the picture better because I knew these kids. I knew this community. I knew these places where they were going to work. And I knew what it took to get there because I had gone through their journey, but without all those resources. So we got to design position descriptions, got to write those. I had written curriculum, but I had never written a position description. We got to write out what our interview process would look like, who we wanted involved in that interview process and why those different levels were important, how that diverse panel would help us lead to the right decision. Because this is a hard choice. We know these people. It's different than recruiting now. You might know some people, there might be referrals, but like I know these people, their family, they're the whole thing. Every single one of them needs this opportunity. We got to understand how to interview without that bias, how to take those things off of the table and how to really engage, how to teach kids how to interview simultaneously as well. We're still building those skill sets. We're not leaving them in the process. But I learned I love whatever I just did. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, Jim, but I was like, I loved that. I loved that a lot. And I loved being there for a full year of the program and watching my students just develop at each part. I learned so much about the program of, oh, we can make this better next year. Or let's get them to give us a panel on this and they can do a project and that can go into, it just kept building into this can get better. And there's more to learn for me, for them. And that program continued on for another year while I was there. And then it continued on even after I left. And it's a blessing. Next week, I have another speaking engagement with one of my first interns ever. She now runs an internship program at another organization.
Wow.
And is asking me to come do opening remarks. But that's networking. That's the relationship I had with her over a decade ago, but she's followed my HR journey since then. She knows that I continue to engage with the community. She knows that I'm still bought into the mission and vision of what we were doing there. But I still love connecting people to opportunities and bridging those gaps. People don't see it. I can explain things in a different way because of that teaching background, because of all those different folks. I can help people see, yes, you want the purple squirrel, but here's what it takes to get a purple squirrel here. And here's how you have to be bought in to help make room for that purple squirrel to even arrive. So I continue to figure out, why do I like this? What do I want to do? And I started to search out different HR roles. I had just got really blessed on my journey. I had an opportunity. I found my first HR job on Indeed, just like we find people right now. Okay. And it was a posting for a smaller organization, no HR, no leadership. It was a one-person owned shop. And I think at the time they had about six technicians, and they were looking for someone that had a teaching background and an HR background because they wanted someone to do training, but they knew eventually HR would have to come into that picture. I can do training. I can teach people. I can write curriculum. I kind of like this HR thing. So I went over there and it was everything I did at my first job times 10. It was so much smaller in terms of size and people and functions and resources. But these were adults that did the same thing every day. That this was a radon company. So this was people's health. This was making sure that the technicians not only knew what they were doing, but doing it well and doing it with courtesy and grace. People are welcoming us into their homes at a time of change. Like that's just a lot. So I had an opportunity to have an impact on the culture. How do we show up? How do we even dress? I chose to wear the same outfit as the technicians. Because if I'm teaching you and I'm expected to show you how to do it, I got to be able to do what you do. Sure. I got to be able to literally be willing to walk into your shoes. I'll never be the expert. That's why I brought you here. But I can't ask you to do things I'm not willing to do. And I surely can't train you on things I'm not aware of. So I showed up and I worked just like them. I know not every HR has an opportunity. I know not everyone even would see the benefit in that. And that's fine. But I got the opportunity to see what do they really need me to do? What can I even bring to this? So I brought that training piece in. I knew how to do that. We wrote the curriculum, we broke that down, but then I brought that human resources piece in as I was learning it. I enrolled in HRCI for the APHR program. I started networking with every HR person I know. What books do you read? Who do you talk to? What organizations are you in? SHRM KC reached out to me about their networking and stuff. So it was just almost as if I was in the sourcing library, just picking up everything off the shelf. What is this? What is this? And of course, the books were all around me. I wasn't necessarily the most efficient HR person, and I was only at this company for about a year. But we doubled, almost tripled the amount of technicians that we had while I was there. Everyone was
Wow.
certified too.
Wow.
I myself was certified, so if we were low staffed or whatever else, I could go out and help. And there was a couple times I did, not often, because I had to do payroll and benefits and everything else. But my team knew, and the owner knew, that if I was needed and it was available, I was trained. We did it. This is a team. We move as one. Um,
Wow.
that got me a lot of buy-in when I tell people, hey, I'm looking for somebody for a role. I need you to tell me if you know someone, because you know how I work now. You know I'm asking you for real, and you know what you're bringing someone into. Referrals only work if you got a good culture, if you got a good thing you're bringing into. We were able to create that. We were able to create HR systems that benefited that small business model. I was leaving the organization; they weren't going to backfill, but we were able to get them connected to. I think the program was Zenefits at the time. It was online benefits specifically for small businesses, so that they could call in and get that support. We were able to do some employee engagement pieces where we had employee of the month, and you got preferred parking because technicians are always in and out. So it's kind of nice to pull up one month. And we did breakfast potluck together on employee of the month celebration day, so everybody could come in. So even though we're honoring one person, this is the team. This is what we're doing. So I left that organization, and then I went to early childhood for a little bit. I missed nonprofit quite a bit. I missed that kid impact, that day to day. I just felt like I had to touch it again and be in that space. And I wanted to challenge myself to learn more HR because I can only learn so much from myself. I wanted to be somewhere where there were other people that had either done HR or supported HR so that they could check me, so they could challenge me, so that they could show me their different ways. I can only walk in my walk so long. And there I got everything I asked for. I had the dose of the kids, and it's early childhood, so it's the little ones. They're excited about everything. I didn't have to worry about motivating. I just had to celebrate now. I just had to let loose and just be there and be present. They just want someone to show up and care. That's where I learned I didn't have to do so much. I could just be there and just be consistent.
Hmm.
There too, it's educators. It's early childhood educators. That's the very niche. That's a very specific group, and you can only find the right kind of people. You can hire anybody, but you need the
Sure.
right person in that classroom. And we did the same thing. We went out to the community. It's a very niche, old school, deeply rooted school. So I went to the actual community. We invited parents to come talk to us about what they wanted, what they needed. I had the admin staff reporting to me as well as the operations staff. So we were the ones that put all the tables out for events, broke them all down, did the mopping, had to wax the floors and strip them. If there was an outbreak of some sort of illness that kids get all the time, it
Yeah.
was up to me and my team to make sure that that room was sterilized. We also had a chef on site, and that chef cooked for our students, and they reported to me. So I was also in charge of making sure that the menu was right and all the state
Oh my
audit stuff.
gosh, you did everything.
Nothing to do with HR, right? But I learned so much about sourcing and HR and recruiting and how to get people bought in and make it cool. I had to explain to them that yes, I'm doing operations. Yes, I'll help you break down all these things, but I got to get payroll done. I got to make sure everybody's enrolled in benefits. We got these jobs posted. We got to get interviews going. So it was I had to learn how to not be a technician anymore. That was really hard for me because I thought if I was doing the same work that everybody was doing every day, that's how I made it cool. That's how I kept it cool because Brittany's right here. I'm doing it right with you. I can only be right there so often though because I have other things I have to do to make room for people to do what they have to do. So I had to
Mhm.
take off that technician polo, which was a big transition for me, but I had to realize how do I lead from the seat that I'm in and keep this operation cool? And it was showing up in the same way, was letting people know, this is why we're here. It's easy when it's kids, everybody's bought in. This is what we have, this is what we're gonna do. The people that I have on this team are the best people on the team, and you're the best people to help me find the rest of the best.
This,
Always.
I, wow. So many things are resonating with me from what you said so far. One thing that resonated with me is how you were doing the work of the people that you were sourcing and recruiting for. And that resonated with me because I know a lot of sources and recruiters, they don't do the work of the people that they're looking to hire. How much better, I think, how much easier their job would be if the people they hired could see them as peers, or maybe not peers, but at least more ingrained in the day-to-day work that they do. You know, I think it
Mhm.
will cut down on a lot of recruiters and sourcers mismatching candidates. You know, I know a lot of recruiters and sourcers who they may not know the industry as well as the person they're recruiting. So they'll just look for certain keywords and they think that they get it because there's certain keywords in the
Right.
resume. But it's totally different when you're actually doing the work yourself and
Mhm.
you're able to figure out who's real and who isn't. So that's really cool. I like how you help shape the culture with the different things that you were doing there. I like your what else resonated with me? Your commitment to the community and building that up, and that became eventually a very strong referral source for you. So that is really your origin story is very interesting to me,
Thank you.
to
It's
say the
it's very
least.
interesting to me too, as the one experiencing it. It's been a
So
wild journey and it's continuing. I can understand that nuance of having been in the role versus not. And oftentimes you
yeah,
don't have the opportunity. That's why I realized I've had a very unique beginning to my career. I don't have that opportunity now. I work at Dairy Farmers of America. We have a plethora of roles, from farm facing roles to every function of the business, IT, you name it, we need it. We're a 20,000 employee organization. We're based in Kansas City and we support over 10,000 family farmers across the US. It's quite the operation. We need everyone. There's no way, even if I took probably a year sabbatical for Brittany to learn all those roles, work alongside all those people, get them bought
right.
in, get them to see my heart and know that this is me and I'll do anything. I don't get to operate that way. I don't get to be the technician anymore. These aren't kids, these are all adults. I don't get to just say, hey, I'm the teacher. I know what I'm doing. None of that stuff really worked. I brought that with me. That was there, but that wasn't the solve. It was part of it, but I couldn't just come in there and wing it.
I,
I had to learn. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, no. I was gonna say, I imagine that you would, they would give you a tour of the facility so you can at least see it firsthand, some of the stuff that they do, right?
Yeah, and you start where you can. I still haven't, I've been here for nearly 5 years. I haven't seen all the facilities. I haven't met every farmer. I haven't tried
Sure.
every product, but I start where I stand. I have worked in the field before I worked here. I worked at Hallmark for a few years and I worked in distribution. I did not do their work day to day, but it was part of our training there for everyone that was exempt level to be brought in, and you had to go order select for a day or two. You had to learn the entire process. You had to go through the
Mm,
safety training. Couldn't even go on the floor without the safety training, and it's an expectation for you to be on the floor. I can't lead from up from the office when all the people are back here on the floor. Um, and I was not, I will tell you right now, Hallmark has no business hiring me as an order selector. I was not the best one. It's a specific skill set. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of walking, there's a lot of just attention to detail, but also that customer service heart. You got to care about who you're packaging that up to and who you're
sure.
sending it to. And I cared about that piece, but I was like, man, this is a really specific, but it helped me understand what I was looking for. Helped me understand that I can invite people for career changes, but I need to really make sure they understand what this walking is like, what it's like to be in the facility. That we do have air conditioning, but that's different than most manufacturing facilities. You're not going to get that other places. So if I'm welcoming people into a career change, letting them know that this is we're great because of these reasons. This is what you can expect while you're here, and this is why it's different than other places. I don't like to lie to folks, Jim, when I'm recruiting. I'll
Mm,
sell it, and I tell anybody that I work for, I'll sell it, but I won't lie to anybody. I will let everybody know what the full package deal is, but if my heart's not in it, I'm just not the right recruiter or sourcer for that moment. I'm just really not. But I will tell people this is what you can expect. But that was a Hallmark thing. That's not something that I can claim. They made sure that was the culture that I walked into, that they expected everyone to lead from their chair and to be part of the entire operation. Those cards only get to people because we all work together. Um, and I brought that lesson with me to DFA. I've learned that I can't work alongside those things, but I can dabble, I can shadow, I can ask, I can go on those tours, I can be a part of a meeting, whether it's virtual or in person. I can invite myself, I can be invited, but I show up to learn when those opportunities come up. I can't build it all, it gets bigger. You can't have your hands on all of that, but you can still show up and you can still walk through those doors and you can still find ways to learn continuously too. I'm not an expert in most of the roles that I source for. Um, but I've learned so much, and each one of those adds to the next one, and I can speak to it a little differently. But I can speak to my journey. The way I talk to you is the same way I'm going to talk to anyone that I recruit. It's the same way I'm going to talk to anyone that I speak to on the phone. They're going to know what it's like to work where I work, what it's like to work with me and the people that I work with. They're going to know why I came here. They're going to know why I stay here, and they're going to know why I think they might like it here. But I'm always going to root for whatever's best for them. I do the Macy's approach. If I'm not the right one, here's some other places that you might want to consider. Here's some feedback if I can give it to you. Everybody ain't like that, and everybody won't like that I do that, but that's how I do it. That's how I work, because that's a referral one day for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a like or share or whatever on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's someone doing anything for me in return that I didn't even know I met before, but they felt something about me and they wanted to help me. I don't know what that return on that investment will be. It's not my business. But it's important because these are people. At the end of the day, whatever we're talking about, whatever role, whatever company, these are human beings. And everyone is looking for an opportunity to meet their needs. Most likely it's to take care of themselves and their loved ones. Might be other reasons, but that's the general thing that I like to roll with. If I can be a part of that, lovely. If I'm not the right person, let me get out of your way.
I like that because I think what's resonating with me now, what you're saying is that you have that human connection that you're connecting to different people. You're able to connect with them on an empathetic level, and a personal level, and that will have dividends on down the road in referrals and recommendations and so forth. And I think I like hearing that because so much of what's being discussed in our industry right now is AI and automation and how these
Mhm.
tools can do all these wonderful things. But you hit on something that just can't be replicated by a machine, that human connection, talking to people, connecting with people. I know that a lot of sources and recruiters, they may have multiple recs. I'm sure they have multiple recs, and they can't possibly know everything. Um, but I'm wondering, is the burden totally on them to really learn everything about a company? I mean, maybe it's part of it could be part of the onboarding process. Like if I
Mhm.
were working for a dairy company and I don't know anything about them, um, I imagine some of the onus is on me to figure out what's going on. But I think some of the burden should be on the company too to make sure that I know what's going on since I'm representing them. And I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of organizations do that. I think they take for granted that you're a great recruiter, that you're a great sourcer, and you'll figure it out. But I don't really get the impression from a lot of companies that they have taken the time and the steps to really prepare you for the work that actually goes on at different companies. That's just
Mhm.
been my impression. What do you think? Have you seen that in your career?
I think so. I think that's most common. I think most of us just assume people know what they're doing,
Yeah.
and assume that people can just walk in and do things how I do them. That's why I had to recognize that I'm Brittany. I'm not anyone else. Not
Mm,
better, not worse. I am just me. I can learn from you, Jim. You can show me how you do your things, but it's going to come out through me, and
yeah.
it's going to have me on it. Um, so I think people just have that assumption that that's not the truth when it is, and then I think people don't really understand what teaching means. I think people
Mm,
think showing someone something once is teaching, and it is. But teaching is a relationship. It's a
mm,
relationship built on trust, and we can go into that ad nauseum. But teachers are supposed to not give up on their students. That doesn't mean that the teacher is responsible for everything the student does. The student has to go home and take care of themselves and do their homework and show up for class and ask the questions and do all those things. But the teacher has to find different ways to reach that student. If it's not working, we got to differentiate. We got to try this, try that. I've had students stand on the desk before because I saw it in a movie. I didn't know if it was going to work. It worked that day. It wasn't a good thing to do long term, but I had no idea. Um, but it's the consistency. It's the not. I think people think that teaching is a one-time deal. I taught you, you've learned it, you're good, and it's an ongoing relationship. Why I love where I work is that we do bring people in with that learning model. We are onboarding people very consistently. We have a robust program and we have a robust learning program because we have the best people in the business on our learning and development team that continue to work with the field, with HR folks to make sure that these systems, these learnings are getting across to everyone in the right way. That's a cultural thing. That's something that I didn't create. That I didn't make my company learn all the great things I brought. They had that when I walked in the door. I benefited from that. I get to add to it now, and I've brought that into my department. So with sourcing, I don't just source. I don't just do whatever people ask and go find the purple squirrels. I will, but I'm going to show you everything I know. I'm going to teach you. We have things available to you. So we have ongoing quarterly engagement meetings where my team, there's myself and two amazing sourcers. we'll go out and we'll reach out to the field and we'll have topics, we'll invite vendors, and we'll go and explain and show and whatever else, even though we already have our toolkit on our intranet site. So it's just internal to our folks, and it's a complete sourcing toolkit. It's got an index so you know what you're looking for, and it's every topic you can imagine, and there's pre-approved things that you can go in there and just print or send to the printer and start using for marketing. That toolkit has been being built since I've been here, nearly 5 years. It's changed, it's robust, and I don't just say, when people reach out for questions, oh, go to the toolkit, it's all there. Or I showed you the toolkit when you started, you should be all set. No, I'm referencing the toolkit in almost every email that I send. I'm pulling it up in meetings. I'm showing people every time I do it how to get there. I put the path in the PowerPoint because no one's going to remember that. Everyone's not like me. They didn't put it on their bookmarks because I said it was a good idea in that one meeting when they had everything else going on in their world. They might one day, which is why I need to be consistent in my teaching and my offerings, and not give up and keep that empathy that you talked about, that trust, that humanness. That's where people learn, that safety to make mistakes, that safety to ask questions, the safety to even think creatively. That comes through that teaching relationship. I try to empower my team. If I'm doing my job well, I can take a day off because it's going to run smooth because everybody has everything that they need. And they know that when I come back, whatever you needed, we're going to get it. But you have things when I'm not there to help equip you, to enable you, to empower you so that you feel like you can do this work too. Because sourcing is not just the sourcer's job. It's all encompassing. Everyone has to be a part of that process. I have to enable you, I have to show you.
Yeah. How much support from outside of the recruiting organization helps you accomplish your goals? Because I know some companies, they say, well, you're the recruiting organization, so it's your problem, fix it. And then some organizations may have the tact that everybody's a recruiter in some form or fashion. What's been in your experience between those two dichotomies?
Yeah, I've experienced both throughout my career. It's a lot harder when it's the hat of you're the recruiter, you just do it. Anytime you have that attitude towards any of the roles, because you're not being a unit anymore, everybody's doing their thing. You've got the maintenance man doing maintenance, but he's not talking to the engineer because the engineer's doing engineering things. HR lady's doing that. Just doesn't work in any operation. It lends to the toxicity and stuff that ends up people leaving because so-and-so said this or they didn't do things the way I showed them. It's not always like that in the beginning, but those things, it just doesn't lead to the humanness that we need to operate in. When everyone realizes that it's a team effort in any organization, especially with bringing people in, you're asking people to leave what they've been doing for however long. You're asking them to like disrupt their life and come work with you and spend the majority of their time with you, not their family, not outside hiking, not doing yoga, with you, doing these things to bring profit to the business. That's all fine, but you got to give them something. You got to work with them. You got to show them. I can't tell people how amazing it is to work for DFA if I don't believe it, because I told you that's a basic requirement for Brittany. So I believe it because I can tell you other people that have been here longer than me, I don't even know all these people, but I know the stories. I've heard how they engage with other people. I've seen how they make other people's faces light up. I see how they walk towards each other in the building. I can see the relationships, even if I wasn't there mentoring them or being a part of it. And I can say this person started as an intern and now they're in the C-suite. I think they like it here. And I don't interact with them daily, but I have worked with their team, and this team helped me partner on this training, or I did place an intern on that team and they ended up whatever else. So it's just showing that story of where else can you go? If it's just coming into the door, that's not enough. Like, you got to show people the pathways of, I don't want you just to come get this job. I want you to come here and work. I want you to retire from here. I want you to have a full career here. I want all of your talents. I want it all. So when you can get people to realize I'm not just a hiring manager, I'm someone that cares about the brand. I want people to know when they ask about DFA that I'm proud to work here. That's with me and my team and the TA team and all these different departments being bought into the fact that we work for the farmers. We work to make sure that they are able to get their milk to the people that we serve. I was a teacher. I had to order the milk. Remember I told you I had to do all the state audits. I literally had to order the milk.
Yeah.
And I told the story in my interview, and I tell it every time I can. I had a lot of vendors that I was working with, and the school that I worked at was in the core of the city, so it wasn't the safest place. Outside of the building, was very well respected and protected by the community, but there was just a lot of things to consider.
Sure.
How we kept the building locked, who we let in, who had access to what. Most people didn't. It was a very tight operation, but the milkman knew my order without me having to put it in. He knew which kids had allergies to milk and had to have something different, or which kids needed the lactose-free options. And he knew exactly how much we needed of 1% and 2%. Every now and then I'd have to change the order, but he knew, and we could leave the door unlocked for him to do the order. He could come in, we didn't, but if he needed a key to get in on the day off, we could do that because it was the same person every day. We knew how he worked. He knew our kids, and we were just one stop on his route, just one stop. But you would have thought that he was our milkman, right?
Wow.
And he helped me feed those kids. So when I knew I had to, I have the vision, I've seen it, and I know what it's like. I know what kind of drivers I need to hire. I need to hire someone that people can trust, that know the orders, that know their community, that care about anybody, not just the milk they got to haul, but who they're bringing it to and who they brought it from. I know what that means because I've had to feed the kids. I've shared that story in my interview, and I've shared that with other people, and they get it. Not necessarily what I saw, but they get that every part of that operation has to work for us to support those farmers, for us to support the world and make it a better place. That takes saying, I like to work here. Here's why. Here's why you should be here. That takes participating in employee referrals when you can. That takes shares, and comments on the company page or for people who are posting content. That takes being on panels. That takes doing things like this and speaking when you're invited to speak, or showing up to do those volunteer hours, board opportunities, whatever those things are. All those things matter, and those stories need to be shared so people know what they're coming into and what opportunities are available to them. And they can, if they're anything like me or you, Jim, they can see where they impact that. Where do they fit into that impact?
Sure. Sourcing is not only cool, but it's also a calling. I definitely enjoyed our time together today. If someone wanted to reach out to you and maybe have more questions, they want to touch base with you, how can they find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to find me, linkedin.com/BLDuncan. And if you look at Dairy Farmers of America, you'll find me on there too. But I'm happy to connect. My email should be on there as well if you want to take it a little step further. But I'm happy to connect with any questions. I'm sure they can reach out to you or leave some comments, and we can follow up that way as well. But just keep the conversation going. And if I can just say one piece, just show up and be you. Just show up. That's half the battle. Everything else will fall into place. What's yours is yours, and what's not isn't. So don't take anything that's not yours, but what's yours is yours. So just show up, hold your head up high, and be willing to learn, be willing to fall down. And just know that there's people like me, there's people like Jim, there's people that you don't even know their name that are willing to help you.
Very, very cool. I'll let the last word be this on behalf of the dairy farmers. Moo!
Yeah. That was pretty good, Jim. Pretty good.